Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Y'all can hear me all right?
Recording in progress.
Oh, there we go.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Happy
And
birthday.
all those good things, yes.
All those good things.
Yeah, always good to be here.
Sure.
So, get comfortable here. So, show me the love. Perfect month for that, isn't it? With the Valentine's Day and everything. So, let me get into this by simply saying that, we are an evidence-based species. So we observe events unfolding around us and draw conclusions based on what we see combined with what we think we know. Where we seem to come unraveled is interpretation of evidence. Our underlying beliefs create filters that influence how we see the facts being revealed before us. Now, in the science of mind, our core belief is that spirit is an energy of love. Blind, unconditional love creating for us as we believe. There's that word again. Believe. Has any other concept been more maligned, twisted, or simply misunderstood in all of human existence? Traditionally, we have been taught to have faith is to believe without question what others have told us is the truth. Now, the science of mind guides us to seek the truth. With faith described by Ernest Holmes in the textbook as a belief in the presence of an invisible principle and law which directly and specifically responds to us. Our faith, our bedrock belief, has the power attributed to Spirit or God, if you prefer, responding to us, not judging us, not setting traps for us, not punishing us, but responding to us. Now, only love responds unconditionally. Spirit responds unconditionally. Logic dictates then that spirit is love. And our faith tells us spirit is infinite. When our faith falters, when we choose to allow the concept of duality to cloud our thinking, when we allow ourselves to believe a second power can coexist within the infinite already occupied by love, we open a door into a rabbit hole of confusion. Our evidence is found in physics, where we learn matter and antimatter cannot coexist in the same space. The dramatic ending of multiple science fiction stories demonstrates the result when they try. By choice, we begin to exclude love from our thinking. Now, the 20th century diarist, philosopher, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Anis Nin, wrote that love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source. It dies of blindness and errors and betrayals. It dies of illness and wounds. It dies of weariness, of witherings, of tarnishings. And I'll add, it dies because of the choices we make, or more directly, the beliefs we choose to enshrine in our consciousness, embedding them so deeply they become the benchmark against which we measure all evidence that follows. When we hang our hat on such a misinformed belief, we set ourselves on that slippery slope down the rabbit hole where truth becomes whatever fantasy masks the hypocrisy we find ourselves entangled in. We introduce evidence that starts with phrases like, well, what about, followed by some perceived insult reportedly committed by the other side. The argument, he hit me first, never worked in the schoolyard, and it has no place in our common consciousness now. The axiom, two wrongs don't make a right, seems easily forgotten when one's argument is based on miscalibrated benchmarks. We see the evidence of misfortune, natural disasters, criminal abuses, all manner of ills we wish did not exist. And we misinterpret these manifestations as evil, and we hate evil, bad, until we volunteer to become a victim. We volunteer to be a victim when we disconnect from our spiritual self. Our spiritual self cannot have a victim mentality. Even when we endure an uncivilized event, our spiritual self can remain steadfast. The families of people hurt or killed in senseless crimes often speak of forgiving the perpetrators. These families can rise above their baser instincts to see their inner peace is not dependent on how the criminal is handled. The families frequently cite their faith as the source of this inner strength. Conversely, people with power can see themselves as victims and will never know inner peace. Once we assume the mantle of victim, the gloves are off. As a victim, we feel justified to lie, cheat, and abuse authority, using the what about argument to justify the hatred we invite into our experience. Choosing to hate, we wall off our link to spirit because a dash of love dilutes hate, and we want to be justified in our anger. A righteous hate leaves no room for love. It shrinks the heart, leaving nothing but a dried husk that cracks and shatters like an old wineskin when touched. But fortunately, love, the energy we know as spirit, can emulsify our hearts without physically touching them. The secret lies in the nature of spirit. Recalling that spirit is infinite, we understand it already exists within that dried husk. It never left. Spirit is infinite. It is everywhere. Even the dried husk still contains spirit within it. And spirit is love, isn't it? Our work, therefore, is to allow the concatenate of false ideas we have amassed in our memories to evaporate, releasing any power or sway they held. So where is the love? The love is everywhere. The love is in all of our thoughts, even when we think we are excluding them. In our belief in the presence of an invisible principle and law which directly and specifically responds to us. In our belief that all these experiences are embedded in the infinite spirit. Spirit cannot judge, so can only observe while physics plays out. Economies ebb and flow, and life thrives and wanes solely via their own laws or choices. The laws of physics dictate how matter behaves in our universe. Gravity brings matter together. Smaller objects are drawn into larger objects. Speed and mass can force objects into orbit rather than an inevitable crash. The matter within an object never fully comes to rest, and objects in orbit influence their host. These are things we have figured out to be true in our physical universe. Our planet is dynamic, made up of plates and sections that are constantly moving. It is their nature dictated by those laws of physics. The laws of physics are how we humans explain the phenomenon of spirit acting around us. Being a tool of spirit, the laws of physics also do not judge. They act without concern of consequences. Physics does not care how humans are affected when two sections of our planet collide or rub against each other. Whether a mountain range is built up or a city is torn down, the collision does not judge. Humans like to judge. We look at the mountains formed epochs ago and marvel at their beauty, calling it the glory of God. We look at the destruction of an earthquake and we damn God for all the pain and suffering inflicted on an unsuspecting populace. Everyone who has ever lived is where they are because of choices they made or were made by people before them. I am speaking here today because one of my ancestors decided to leave their familiar home and migrate to a new world. A decision over which I personally had no control triggered a cascade of events, and here I am today. And that person was where they were then because of things they could not control beforehand. The terrors of an explosive volcanic eruption are well documented. Yet people still choose to live in fallout zones. Some may feel there is no option. Most simply believe, that word again, the disaster will not strike in their lifetime. Either way, it's still a choice. And love appears to die when the reality is we misinterpret the evidence. What we interpret as tragedy is in spirit simply the natural course of events. We collectively pray for more expressions of love between peoples who are strangers to each other. We do that all the time, don't we? We're always hoping that the world will be more peaceful, that people will love each other. Well, through the gift of choice, Spirit creates a world where people choose to live in places where stuff's going to happen. And when tragedy strikes, people are moved to help their fellows. They find strength they didn't know they had, and they make changes that they would never have been motivated to make before. The tragedy spurs action. The tragedy spurs change. Spirit has worked through the tragedy. People show love where they never thought to show love before. There's a short little blurb in the Bible, Romans 13:10. All it says is that love is all the law demands. Now, I don't know the exact context of this verse, but my guess is it's a plea for obedience to the laws of man as set forth by the governing forces of the time. At least on the surface it would seem so. The Bible, though, is not a history book. It is a spiritual primer whose every verse and story is geared to offer guidance to we wandering humans in our journey back to spirit. It's been misrepresented over history, but that is what it is. in this case, there is no subterfuge or simile at play. Recalling that the law, capital L, is the mechanism through which Spirit acts on our beliefs, here it is dropped squarely in our laps. Love is all the law demands. Our experience of heaven is at hand when we maintain our unity with Spirit, when we sustain our faith and recognize we are created in the image of Spirit. We are expressions of Spirit. We are love. Now, Rumi said, your task is not to seek love, but merely seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. You see, Rumi is recognizing we are already love. We are Spirit. The love is infused within us. It is all we are. And yet we create barriers to isolate ourselves. We expend a lot of energy seeking evidence of love. We fool ourselves into thinking there is a science to it that can be distilled down into an app on our phones. Do they have the right hair, the right eyes, the right family and hobbies? Do they have a job? We set up all these filters with the hope of guaranteeing we will not be rejected or disappointed. We put our kids in special schools to keep them out of school altogether to ensure they are not exposed to ideas that we may not agree with. Self-imposed barriers whose only true effect is to guarantee love never seeps into our experience. And we wonder why we are so tired all the time. What excuses are we nurturing? What evidence threatens to unravel our carefully crafted story? What benchmark belief is distorting our vision of truth? If we believe the evidence tells us love is a magic pill, someone will be willing to sell it to us. If we believe the evidence tells us love is anything that can be bought, someone will be willing to sell it to us. If we believe the evidence tells us Spirit is the source, we need only look within and say, show me the love. And that bit of truth just ain't for sale. Thank you.